Hello everybody. Lovely to see you guys today. I hope you're all not going too stir crazy. But if you're like me, you like to have something to do that's creative. And sometimes we need to kind of borrow ideas from other people, which is why this video exists. I'm going to show you guys how to do an abstract seascape. So a seascape is basically a picture of sea, and often there may be some sky, or sometimes there's land in a seascape, but the main component is that there is a body of water. And so I'm going to show you guys how to do a more expressionist seascape, which an expressionism type of art is a kind of art that depicts something that may or may not look a little bit real, but is also expressing a feeling or spirit. So we're going to get started. I'm going to show you guys the materials we're going to use, and I'm really excited to do this with y'all. So we have our palette of paints here. And what I used is a piece of a transparency sleeve. It's been used before. It's kind of beat up. I like to use recycled materials whenever possible. So you could also use a coated paper plate, a piece of parchment paper, something that isn't going to absorb too much of what you put on it. So those are some ideas for palette. Next, we're going to want some kind of rag. An old t-shirt cut up might work. Something to dab brushes on. So I never paint or make art without an art rag. And on it lay a variety of brushes. I probably won't use all of these, but I like to have an array of brushes to choose from when I'm painting. All right, next we have water. And then we have some paints. And I don't think I'm using all of these colors today, but I wanted to show you guys different kinds of paint, sort of the kind of paint that I'm using for this painting. These paints are available locally. They are available at a craft store, and right now we may or may not be able to access all of these materials as easily, but we do happen to sell them at a supply shop downstairs, Art Post in Durham. But I love these paints. They're called heavy body. They're thick, which means they're really good for spreading. You can also work with texture with these as well. So this is our canvas. You do not have to use a canvas. You can actually do this activity on some kind of firm poster board. You can use just something that isn't going to absorb too much of your paint. So honestly though, you could use cardboard. I definitely believe in painting on any available surface. And again, if you're kind of stuck and you need to use recycled materials, you could paint on packaging from a product that you have. So, have at it. I'm going to put this in a place that will be secure, and we will get started. So, this is our canvas, and I am going to begin by taking a large brush, and I'm going to dip in water. And actually, I want to show you guys this. I'm taking a largish brush. I'm not taking the biggest one, but I want something that will cover this canvas pretty effectively. I'm going to do a background first. So I'm going to mix some white and red. And you might be thinking, why are you using red in a seascape? Well, since this is an abstract expressionist seascape, I'm going to do an underpainting of a bright color. You're going to see why eventually. I'm going to make a pink to go underneath all of it. And I can just do a thin layer of it. I don't want too much water. I actually think I want to make this more coral. I'm going to clean this off. And I'm going to add some yellow. You guys notice how I clean brushes between dipping into paints? That way I keep my paints from getting all mucked up so early in the process. At the end of the painting, if they're a little bit messed, that's totally cool. And again, it's not the end of the world if you gotta add more paint. All right, so I'm gonna begin by coating my entire canvas with this color. I'm going to, and I'm probably going to run out of this color and have to make more, and that's cool. And actually, it's kind of fun when you have to switch colors when it kind of changes a little bit. Because then, again, this is an underpainting. This is going to be painted over, and bits of this color are going to peek through in our painting. It's pretty fun. So I'm going to put the camera down and finish painting the background. So this can happen quickly. You guys can do this very fast with a really large brush if you want. Look, my color became different, but that's okay. Kind of love it. And you can do this smaller. I'm going to actually switch to a larger brush. I didn't think I would, but I did. And give it just a coating of this color everywhere. So I find that I don't do any painting without an underpainting. And the reason is I find that it just adds something really expressive and interesting to every painting. So even if I'm working on something that's inspired by real life, I will do this and cover a canvas or whatever surface I'm painting on with the color first. Just cover it all the way. And actually it makes it a lot easier to begin my painting, whatever I'm doing. Again, it could be, it may not need that much thought into it. But I like to start with the canvas that's not white, because white is a little intimidating. And that means it's a little bit, makes you kind of scared to get started. I don't know about you, but I don't want anything about art to be scary. Art's for everybody. So we are almost ready. And I invite you guys to paint the edges. If you're working on a canvas, I would go along the edges as well. And you can do the edges later as well, which is probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and do them later. So this is my underpainting for my abstract seascape. And you can use a hairdryer to dry this so that when you paint on top of it, there's no chance of mixing this color in with your watercolor or whatever your design is, with mixing it with the colors that you add on top. But I like to kind of just go for it. I'm one of those people that just wants to sit down, do it, and finish it. But, to each his own. All right, now I'm going to step back. And I like that. I always step back when I'm working. Every so often, every few minutes even, sometimes I will step back and look at my painting from across a room. That is an art trick. It's a tool to help us get a better perspective on what we're working on. Because when we're really close, sometimes we can find all these things we don't like, but when we step back, we can appreciate what we're doing a little more and also see the next thing that we want to add or change. So now I'm going to use the same process, and I'm going to take some white and scoop it to a new spot. And then I'm going to take some blue, and either of these blues will work. If you only have one blue, that's totally fine. You can make a variety of hues with just one color, and shoot, even yellow or white. You can make a variety of different versions of one color. So I put two blues here to show you there's two different ones I happen to have. You can do it all with just one. Let's see, I'm going to do this one, and I'm going to mix. And I may get a color that's really close to this one, but I kind of like to mix more than I like to just use something. Oh, it's the same. That's great. I didn't even need the other one. Well, I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to add some of this here. Wait, zoom out. I'm going to plan where my water line is going to go. So One of the rules of creating an effective or attractive landscape or seascape is to not put your horizon line, which is where the sky meets the ground. Have you guys heard that? So that line does not go right in the middle. It's not going to be as attractive if it is right in the middle. So what I'm going to do, all right, now I'm going to just go crazy and start adding colors right on top of this. So anytime I take a step here, you might modify it your way, use different colors than I do, different surface, different brushes. So this is just one way to do an abstract seascape. All right, I'm gonna add some of these others, and I'm not gonna blend them all the way. I kind of like to have the brush strokes really visible, because it's a painting, not a photo, right? So painterly brush strokes, big fan of those. All right, I'm gonna add some of this blue. So I find I can play here for quite a while. I find that if I want this to look like it has depth, I can do a few things. If I add some darker paint towards the horizon, I just got myself out some purple. Again, my canvas is wet, so if you want to dry yours, it won't mix as much with the colors underneath. If that's your desired effect, then I'd dry it first. But if you put some darker right at the horizon, it tends to look like it's further away. All right, kind of feeling that for right now, so I'm going to move on to the sky. All right, now the sky, I kind of like the color that's already there, and I didn't plan that. It actually is a happy accident. So I am going to tweak it a little bit. I'm going to step back and take a look. All right, I think I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to create a very light blue. So I've got white plus some blue here, and I'm going to start up here. Ooh, you guys, that's what happens when you use too much water, and this is why your rag comes in handy. Even if you leave a little bit of a mark like that, you can come back from that and paint over. So I'm going to start up here, and I just, whew, you guys, I'm getting super expressive up in here. So this is also when you want to wipe the extra water off your brush. And I look at stuff like that as just, you know, part of the process. And it will be okay. You can either use your finger, scratch it off a little bit, leave a little mark there, but you know what? It's going to become part of the sky. Let's see. And because it's wet, I can actually kind of blend it with the color underneath a little better. Kind of interesting. I never know how these are going to turn out, so I'm discovering it with you, which is, again, part of the fun for me. All right, step back. That's a bit interesting. Let's do some purple, red. Let's see what happens here. Let's do a little bit of lavender up here. Let's see, and you know what I'm gonna do, guys? I am gonna clean my brush and make it very light at the horizon. So I'm gonna start off by just adding white. I know that's kind of crazy, but it's gonna mix with some of the colors around it. It's even mixing a little bit with the horizon, and I'm just letting that happen. I'm not gonna blend it in all the way. I'm gonna just add white here. Feeling that. Let's go some more white. think I do like the white in there. So periodically you do want to dip your brush in water as you're painting, but after you've done the first layer of paint, you need less water. So when you're first doing a background, a little more water. So I would dip your brush in water, then paint, then canvas. As you paint on top of that first layer, you may use less water because you saw what happened. It dripped a little bit. There's nothing wrong with experimenting. This is acrylic paint, which means it dries fast and you can paint over it. So if I did not like this blending, I would let it sit for a while or blow dry it and then come back and paint on top. But I kind of like it. Ooh, that purple was neat. That's fun. Hey. I actually like that little strip of orange right there at the horizon. So, this is a basic abstract seascape. You can add all kinds of colors in here. I'm going to add some more coral color, which is a yellow, red, white. About to get crazy up in here, y'all. Let's see. That's kind of fun. And at this point, I'm not using any water at all unless I'm cleaning my brush between colors. I'm dipping in some red, yellow. And again, if you find colors that you don't like, that you just added, just put something else on top of it. Or walk away and come back. I feel like any canvas or any painting is always available for revisiting. I never consider everything a failure and done and worthless. I always look at it as, I'll come back to that and maybe paint over it. I don't like to waste canvases anyway, you know? So you notice that I don't have a sun in here. You can add one if you'd like. And so if I want to add one, I tend to make it, you might think it should be yellow, but it's actually almost white. I tend to just add, let me see, I might need to get some new clean white. Let's see. Little purples in there, and that's kind of cool. Maybe I do that, and then I kind of spread out and blend it a little bit. So there's lots of ways you can kind of imply there's a sun there without making it that big circle. So now what I want to do is probably add a little bit of highlight on the water where the sun would reflect. And one of the things I avoid here is I don't put white directly here. I usually add like a lighter blue because usually like a reflection is some kind of version of the color of what it's on. So, if that makes sense. So I'm going to just make a lighter blue here with a little bit of white and see what happens. I might have to play with this a little bit and I might have to use a smaller brush. So I've got something with a fine point. Just like that. And I'm going to dip in white, little blue, and I'm just going to kind of add. And so it's really tiny, far away, just tiny little dots. And if I make it too white, I can add ocean colors back in. And I find that as you get further down the canvas, it'll be sort of like a triangle, and those reflections will be out in the water and spaced out more. And since my canvas is wet, you can revisit and do this part when you're dry, when it is dry, and then also you can use a smaller brush. And again, if that's too white, and I maybe think it is a little bit, I might go back in and add a little bit of blue in there and just tone it down. Spread it out a little. But again, you want to have tinier marks further away, which is at the horizon, and then you can make your marks a little bigger as you move down the canvas. I like to have fun with it. And so painting water is one of those things you can play with and kind of use your own ideas, experiment with textures. So this is sort of a visual texture. It doesn't actually feel rough, but it looks like it's kind of bumpy and rough waters. So this is just one fun activity you guys can do at home. These materials, again, if you don't have a canvas, use something that isn't going to soak everything up, that's spongy or fabricy. And you can modify the materials used here. If you have craft paint, try it with that paint. Those little bottles that you see, these aren't going to be as colorful and bright. They're going to go on kind of see-through, but if that's all you have, try it with these. So thank you guys for joining me today for our Abstract Expressionist Seascape. It has been super fun, and enjoy painting. Have a great day.